Good morning. My name is Tom Cross. I'll be talking today about virtual sales and events professional certification. We like to say we don't make great tech, we make great talent. These courses are also available from TMCnet, a leading industry publication and industry virtual events producer. And this is a very exciting opportunity for you to get the courses from us or from TMCnet, and they are a great training partner. This is a kind of an overview of all the different curriculum we've got. This isn't just a course, this is a curriculum. This is a certificate program. The fundamentals in both virtual events and virtual sales are essentially the same. We're going to cover a lot of these slides throughout this presentation. In other words, the fundamentals class is about 1 hour, and I'll go through some of the details. The advanced level is about 2 hours. We really kind of drill into the detail. The first hour is really about the presentation. The second advanced level is really about the people, both you and the audience. We like to call it SEAL team training, speaker engagement, audience, and logistics. And the expert level is another 2 hours where we really kind of move you into the performance mode. This is really kind of an expert level for theater presenters, business leaders, chief executive officers, investment presentations, things like that, Wall Street presentations, etc. The virtual event producer and these two programs are really about the producer and really the production. The idea is that we really kind of focus on where is the production going to take place and who's going to be producing it. And this is kind of a fun little class of how to get your home audience, home studio right, your professional studio all organized, etc. The virtual sales fundamental professional certification is really for new hires, new people, new to sales, anybody new to the business, new to your industry, those kinds of categories. We like to think about this as really a 1 hour. Again, it's going to cover a lot of the same things. But again, if you're boring face-to-face, you're still going to be boring via video. I'll keep reinforcing that. The second one is building strategic customer assessments. And this really kind of gets you really more away from just doing a talking heads presentation into doing a really in-depth kind of customer assessment of what's going on with that customer and really turning the audience around from talking to listening. Why do we have 2 ears and 1 mouth? Well, it gives you an idea of what it's all about. Session 3 is really taking the virtual selling action today, kind of moving that customer along into the process, getting them involved in what you're really talking about, etc. There's the second part of this thing is for leadership, for the sales management, sales leadership, directors, C-levels, etc. This is how you sell the concept to the organization, how you reorganize, what we like to call virtual first business model. One CEO says, we're not going back. There's no going back because our competitors are already there. They're thinking about this. New startups are not going to start up the old way. They're going to start up virtually. And so we really kind of focus in on that. Session 2 and Session 3 kind of expand that model. There's a whole level of expansion into this concept. We've built a curriculum all around selling enterprise sales customers, talking about yourself, talking about the enterprise, who you're really selling to, and things like that. There's a lot of sessions here, and depending on which you want it, by the slice or by the whole program, you can kind of organize this curriculum to make your sales force a better presenter, better leaders, things like that. We've got great user evaluations. I won't dwell on those. Just to say that people are really excited about these classes, and they really do perform well, provide real ROI for both events and really for salespeople. We've got industry leaders from Evan Kirstel and others to kind of give you a recommendation that this class is tried, true, and tested. Also, Peter Adams with Rockies Venture Club highly recommends this class for startups, new businesses, etc. Now we kind of get into the classes. My job is to speak, your job is to listen. If you get done before me, you're free to go out to play. It's kind of a ha-ha way to introduce this kind of concept, because what we find is that people are really boring. It's really astounding. I've gone to probably 100 different kind of webinars, and especially these Zoom meetings where it's all talking heads, etc. And they're really dull and boring. And so what you have to do is work around that. If you're especially doing a sales present or event presentation where you're not just talking about the event or all the people there, you're trying to get something accomplished, whether it be a training class, a leadership, investor presentation, startup, etc. I like to say, look at another way. You can read 5 times faster than I can speak, and I'm certainly counting on that. Here's another kind of what we're going to talk about is people kind of rely too much on the technology rather than the presentation to get their processes organized, get their thoughts together. I think the real beauty about doing a great presentation is you really organize your thoughts in a very concise, precise, decisive way to help people understand the technology and what they're doing. So, you can make your office funny, you can be funny, you can also entertain people. I'm certainly engaged with that. But remember, if you're boring face-to-face, you're still going to be boring via video and digital. And the technology makes you only look worse. So, keep that in mind when you're in front of us. Kind of drilling deeper into this issue of where are we here now? This whole idea of virtual business, virtual first, is a really interesting concept, and virtual will be harder but longer lasting. We're going to be recording more things for a longer period of times. We're going to be doing mixed live streaming, hybrid concepts all mixed together. It will be the same but different in the sense is that you may be presenting from your home, your office, your car, mountaintop, etc. You may be also organizing your thoughts very differently in the way you organize technology around your presentation. Internet of medical technology is going to bring us to bear in how we kind of take care of ourselves, help take care of others, etc. Telehealth isn't just seeing a video with your doctor. It's more than that. It's more of an analysis because they can't really see you, feel you, or understand what's really going on via video. And so that's going to be an interesting challenge out there. Virtual will not be what we thought it would be. It'll be really different as we integrate artificial intelligence in that process. However, content will always remain critical. All right, first class fundamentals. We're going to go through, these are examples of slides from the 3 sections in fundamentals class. We're talking about slides. There's a lot of slides out there. Let's do the math though. Here's the math. The average viewer takes about 4 seconds at 500 words a minute, or about 200 words a minute, 10 seconds to read the list of bullets, while the presenter takes at 100 words a minute about 2 seconds to even say the topic and first bullet. Now, maybe you're not all about the math, but the idea is that, again, people can read 5 times faster than you can speak. And you can talk really fast, but it's not going to make any difference because they're reading a lot faster than what you're talking about. All right, the first question that everybody asks, how many slides and what's a slide look like? And again, this is about business presentations, teaching, training, any type of business thing. It's not about, we'll call these talking heads, roundtable discussions. That's great, that where you have people talking. What do you think about this, Fred? Give me an idea about this. This is really, these classes are really to help you make a better presentation. And if you're especially in sales, hopefully close the business a lot better. We know that it works. All right, 1 bullet per slide, right? 1 bullet, font size 20 to 32 pixel size, and then keep adjusting. Very upsetting. The other thing, violated my own rule the first thing, but again, you add 1 bullet, 1 picture per slide. The idea is that you kind of organize your thoughts around the visual elements of the presentation. I like to think of this as, hey, how do we take that further? Certainly, you can integrate a lot of really interesting and simple to build animations inside your PowerPoint presentations to kind of, not just show the whole screen at once, but actually build as you discuss the issues in front of you. And so the audience is always, again, where you're going. The audience will never know where you're going. So keep them, kind of on edge a little bit in the senses that don't tell everything all at once. Keep it building, so that they see a constant build and they're constantly entertained. Because frankly, most people, everybody says, well, I've got ADD. Well, I think most people have ADD because we're just designed that way. And so you kind of organize your thoughts around, keep organizing your presentation. Animations add a lot of value, add a lot of visual value, especially as you're trying to explain and keep out what is that going on out there. Keep people engaged with this process. We put together a presentation on SD-WAN or software-defined wide area networks to help people understand how we kind of migrate from one kind of technology to another type of technology. Another question people ask is how many slides per minute? This is always a challenge because some slides you may want to talk a long time about, where like that earlier slide where I've got the graphics, etc. You may spend a whole minute or 2 on that slide, but a good rule of thumb is about 3 slides per minute. However, adjust during rehearsals. Did I say rehearsals? What is that all about? We're going to talk about that in a minute. The other thing that people forget about completely is transitions. Transitions really give the chance for the presenter to take a pause, allow the audience to take a breather, kind of relax a second, etc. Take a breath, press the button, take a breath, press the button, take a breath, etc. Add in animations, add in the transitions between the slides to give your presentation, a little bit more kind of pause. You'll see that in most movies, they'll pause, they'll kind of go to dark from one scene to another. It allows a transition from one concept to another. The other thing I like to remind people is that, you keep doing that so people keep engaged with you. Also, label each slide too. This is a thing that I think we learned way back, and I don't think Steve Jobs taught us that. But Steve Jobs taught us a lot about backgrounds. I don't think that the industry is changed forever because of how he redesigned the theater presentation. Now, some people argue about the dark screen, what I call movie theater style, versus, what I like to think about is always one more thing, it talks about. Also, the idea is that some people prefer a lighter background. I mix either way, doesn't matter. Remember that if it's in many cases, the presentation room is dark, so keep it more movie theater style, and that's just an optional thing. All right, so training is always about tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. So, keep in mind, you'll lay out the agenda, but again, you don't have to go through each one of these bullets. Let people know where they're going. Let people know what's going on. Tell them where we're going to go in here. And the idea is that you go through the whole process. And again, I'm not covering every slide in the presentation. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to come to my class. Otherwise, here we go. I like to say start on time. Start absolutely on time and end on time, but don't stop. Pause. What I mean by that is get your presentation done in about 30 to 45 minutes. Allow plenty of time for Q&A. Many people come to your webinars or presentations for the Q&A, especially if you're a C-level and the junior levels, the director levels are given the presentation. The C-levels are going to come out, and others are going to come at you like pit bulls, attack your presentation, ask you questions, make sure you really know what you're really talking about, etc. Also, in the webinars, it's so annoying when people go, well, it's the top of the hour, we got to stop. A lot of people came for the questions. Why stop? Are you in a hurry to get rid of the audience out there? No, keep engaged with the audience. As long as they're there, you're there. I think is that, especially with an agenda, it's always helpful to have, an agenda, what's going on. Everybody talks about the problem about meetings, and maybe not every, but certainly a lot of articles you see every day talk about how to make a better meeting. Well, have an agenda. Well, if you don't follow the agenda, if the agenda doesn't mean anything, what's the point of the agenda? So you have to keep in mind that, all these tips and tricks and concepts all play in making a better presentation. Understand what kind of format you've got out there. Is this a roundtable discussion? Is this a board meeting? Is this where people are intended to be asking questions and answers, or is it just an informational update? Some of those things can be just done as a short video like these are, etc. Understand how the participants are going to play in this format out there. How are they going to understand what's going on? Is this just a broadcast format? We're letting everybody know, here's an update on the status of the sea levels, pandemic issues, etc. So, again, keep in mind what's going on in the meeting as well. What is said is not what is heard nor what is done. Everybody thinks they go to a meeting and they come out with different impressions of what took place, and nobody has any idea what's going on. So you have to keep that in mind, that those are important rules of the road. Keep in mind that if it wasn't written, it wasn't said. And communication will always fail except by chance. These are rules I've learned over 40 years to make a better presentation. Make sure that everything you do in writing, make sure that the presentation's, on the wall so they can see what's going on. See what is the issues that are at stake and provide answers and follow up with those answers. Yes, Fred asked yesterday about the deadline for when we get the bricks and the cement together. Well, the answer is. So make sure that all the kinds of things are part of the process, because throughout that whole concept, you build trust. The idea of any kind of business is to build trust against people, because if you can't trust Fred to make sure the bricks are there when the cement comes, well, we need to have a talk about getting a new Fred or getting somebody else out there. Okay, are we done? Now gently tell them what you told them. Oh, these are the topics we covered today. Oh, thank you. Okay. Make sure do you have any questions, please, you can ask them now or at the end of the presentation, or email me next week. Again, keep in mind that nothing else, what you're up against is I can only speak at about 120 words a minute, and you can probably read 500, 1,000. There are really speed readers who can read a far more than that. All right, briefly, we're going to talk some about some of the technologies. I think the idea of virtual events changes the paradigm from basically face-to-face, show up, throw up, and really people don't really know how to use the technology. I've been astounded by the fact that, FaceTime and people do video, but they do it really badly. And so we're going to spend a few minutes in this class, not right here, right now, but talk about the issues with the different types of video out there. I think we understand there's real-time still frame broadcast and streaming. There's other types of video out there. Does the thing move? Is it important? And let's understand, what are we talking about here? Remember to focus on the problems, not the people, because chances are, with many exceptions, that the people you're talking to already know. You've already met them in many cases. Maybe you've had a kind of a round table, heads up, talking heads presentation. So let's focus on the problem. What are your problems try to solve today? Oh my gosh, the oil rig's on fire. How are we going to do that? How are we going to handle the hurricane? How are we going to handle this problem, etc.? Remember, video can go where no one can go. This is from the BP oil spill. That's like, 5 miles down. And, that's all we had was the video. So keep in mind that the video can take us places. It doesn't mean that we can go out there and touch the stuff. But on the other hand, there are places that, given the pandemic and the coronavirus, maybe you really don't want to go there. So again, video can go take us all kinds of places. And think about what's moving or not. In the case of a hurricane, we need to know action items right down to the minute. In the case of basically slides and stuff like that. Now let's look at this virus and see what's going on with that. See what you can really tell anything. Is there anything moving there? I think it's really important, understand that video is not about talking heads. Because in this case, people are focused on your backgrounds, not about what you're talking about. So again, I think as a good introduction is, hey, this is me, Tom, and a picture of me, fine. But after that, you don't need to see me anymore. And let's focus on the presentation. Audio has all kinds of great formats. Again, it's taking out the visual, but providing a more flexible environment where I can be driving, riding a train, riding a bicycle, things like that, where I can understand the presentation format in a different way. Graphics is another way. There's a lot of different presentation styles that we're seeing out there emerge that are a lot more useful in that. Augmented virtual reality, these kind of heads-up glasses, etc., that are training people out there. It's going to change the way we do presentations. Here's augmented reality. And I wrote a book on artificial intelligence, and so I think AI will play into this in some form or fashion. That's the end of session 2, or basically what I call fundamentals class. Here we go into session 3 in the advanced class, and this is the speaker, engagement, audience, and logistics, what I call SEAL team training. So, speaker. What is the speaker all about? Preparing yourself, rehearsing yourself. It's always amazing to me. People think, boy, that movie really flowed really well. Well, they probably rehearsed it a lot, and they probably did 20 takes before they got it right. And they kept doing retakes until they got it right. That's why it looks so good on TV. Understand the agenda and purpose. Keep in mind what's going on here. Keep the schedule. Is there a schedule here for the presentation? I like to think is that if we're not keeping a schedule, people want to know where we're going. They want to know, okay, this is Fred's talking first, James talking last. Okay, here's the schedule. And then throughout this whole process, as I said before in the first class, we really kind of talk about more in depth about roundtable formats. How do we engage people? Again, the speaker engagement, audience logistics. So how do we engage the audience in different kind of formats that exist out there? Make sure, how are we doing this? I think in so many cases, I see voting, polling, and testing in too many webinars. They're really done for market research. They're not done for really assessing what the customer is really looking for, so they can be rather annoying. I think that when we think about those kinds of issues out there, I think that you want to make sure people are really engaged with the presentation rather than just kind of observers or whatever. Also, evaluation forms. I'm not a big fan of 3.5 or the 5.0 net promoter scores, etc. I think it's like, what did you like about this presentation, and what can you do it better? And I invite anyone who's listening to this today, the same thing. My email is cross@goacross, and I'm always looking for making this presentation better. If you're doing a live presentation, why not use room dividers instead of just these backgrounds? Room dividers are very expensive, under $100. You can change your room look any day you want. So keep that in mind when you're doing kind of heads up kind of presentations, that you don't want people really looking at your background. Even with virtual backgrounds, I don't think they're as effective as just a good room divider to break it up a little bit. Session 4, or what we call expert level, this is where we kind of drill into about 50 different types of negotiation, deliberation, persuasion, voting, jury, all these different kind of meetings that exist out there, and how to utilize those better in making your own presentation better. Understand what is the purpose of the presentation to make sure we accomplish the goals out there. I like to think about this. What is said is not what is heard, nor what is done, and communication will always fail except by chance. Once you understand those as fundamental flaws in the process, we now can work to get really people on the same page. Everybody talks, let's get on the same page. Well, are you really verifying? I'm just telling you stuff. Well, are we really on the same page? Did you really understand what I had to say? I think those are the kinds of things that exist out there. I also like to think of that there are major concepts that we miss out there, like crisis communications. You see that really need to have a much better approach to the whole process. I teach a whole class on crisis communications, and it's more about the communications process on how to solve conflicts, how to get conflict resolution, disciplinary interviews, other special audience. How do you really organize this expert level? I like to think of this as racing the Tour de France. You're the real power presenter at this point, and make sure that these kinds of issues really are, you understand them all, and you can apply them to different kinds of things, because as I found in doing a lot of research on these virtual events that exist out there, people aren't doing them very well. What I mean is the audience shows up, but the presenters aren't presenting well. They're so used to having somebody walk up to the booth, ask a few questions, pass them a flyer, get their lead, and then move on. That's not how you do virtual trade shows. And so to do virtual trade shows, we're going to have to do them very differently than the way we're doing right now to be effective. Because when you talk to the audience, when you say, hey, will you go back? No, I won't go back. That's the real kind of, we'll call it Yelp moment. You going to go back to that place? No, I'm not going to go back to that place. I like to think of a really huge opportunity is that you probably have a little bit of excess office space these days from all the people working at home, and you probably have got paying for warehouse storage of your booth. Why not move your booth into your office and do live trade shows from your office? You can also redesign. There are people like Taylor Studios, etc., who can really build you a museum quality kind of presentation trade show in your office. So keep those things in mind. That's the end of session 4, the expert level. At this point, I've just got a few more slides. These are some of the other courses I teach: critical concepts in crisis management communication, building strategic customer assessments. I like this one a lot. Executive seminar on building a competitive intelligence agency, CIA, with AI. And this kind of plays into the last one here, or last two here, about artificial intelligence. Right, 75 to 80% of, if you look at the Fortune magazine or Forbes articles, of all AI projects have failed is because they've not done the market validation at first. They built the model for today, not tomorrow. They built the wrong model for today. Well, that's what I thought you wanted. Well, no, AI doesn't work that way. AI should be a flexible system. And what is the business validation out there? And I'm really so tired of hearing people say, well, our product is AI powered. Well, it's not AI powered at all. And really lying to the customer out there. The last class, or last series of classes, which fits into the advanced level of the virtual sales professional, is what I call Enterprise Sales Acceleration Program. And I think if you look at that program, you'll see what our focus is the proven sales revenue acceleration across thousands of B2B sales professionals that reduces sales cycle, increases competitive edge. And I think it's even more critical today when we think of increases competitive virtual edge. Reduces staff turmoil and turnover, produces higher margins, provides improved sales leadership. And on that note, we're at the end of the presentation. And I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email me at cross@gocross.com. Thank you again. Good day.